Hello, everyone out there. And I'm Midori, often called Auntie Midori, and welcome to ShibariStudy.com's Consent Dojo. For those of you who are first time joining us, this is an ongoing conversation with my brilliant friends around all manners of how to make your play hotter, safer, more joy-centered, with and through engagement of powerful, strong ways of using consent and about self agency. And so today I am thrilled to introduce to you a dear friend of mine and an amazing colleague and a podcaster, storyteller, and a very wise woman, actually. And so I am delighted to share with you my lovely friend, Sunny Megatron.
Hello, I'm so excited. And the wise woman called me a wise woman, so I'm having a moment. Thank you.
Well, how you doing today?
Really good. Really good. Yeah.
Mhm. So let me go over a little. I've talked to you about this before, where it's a series of 90-minute conversations. And I find, trying to teach consent as a set of rules really doesn't work. And I think talking about it through different perspectives and where the viewers can gain valuable insight through each of our very personal experiences. I think a lot of times people want clear rules around how to navigate consent, and it
Yes.
just doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it does not. And I think that is a blessing and a curse when it comes to kink, when it comes to sexuality, when it really comes to engaging with any other human beings at any time. Especially with kink and sex, if we're looking to find how to or how to construct or best practices, we want to find a clear, here are the 10 rules to make sure that every time everything's and it's really uh, multidisciplinary rather than people going on their kink journeys and finding this set of rules to adhere to. They find out, wait a minute, I have to work on emotional literacy and clear nonviolent communication and self-awareness and that's really what we need to learn. And once we get into that, it's so complex that it's mind-blowing.
It's complex and simultaneously simple, but simple isn't easy.
Right,
Right.
right. And I think the subject matter too scrambles our brains a little bit.
Mhm.
If we step back and we remove our own, I don't know, inhibitions, preconceived notions, our own, skewed emotional states that we're imposing, it is rather simple, but it's hard for us to see through that lens because of all the other noise we've got going on.
I wish it were that there were like a simple 10-step policy to follow, but there isn't. So for those of you watching out there who find, as you're diving into thinking about consent and agency and boundary and finding it muddled and confusing and a lot of depth needed, yes, you're right. And if anyone tells you that this is easy, uh, no, it's not. I I also want to emphasize for those of you who are new to Consent Dojo, I want to remind you that the point of engaging in consent, especially with rope play, is not. It's actually not about making consent work. Consent works towards making our joy happen. And I think that's an important way to think about it. Consent is very important. I find a lot of times people are talking about rope play as serving consent.
Hmm.
Consent is an everyday activity to make our joy happen. And I hope that I know that sometimes it's like, oh, I have to ask for consent, and it's such a pain in the ass. No, it's like a knot, it's like a tie, it's like a position, it's one of your skill sets. I guess the only difference is with like a rope position
Mhm.
versus excellent rope tying versus excellent consent is one makes it easy for Instagram and the other is harder to Instagram. Although, you know what? This could be a fun for viewers. If you are able to visually capture hot consent combined with rope. Now that's almost like a riddle. I feel like one of them like witches who put out a riddle. Yes,
Yeah.
and you will make a photo on Instagram, tag it to Shibari Study and me, where see if you can visually show what successful consent looks like. I'd love to see that, you know?
I would love, it's like a creativity scavenger hunt. Like who can find all the pieces and put them together? I love it.
So you have some things that you wanted to talk about, and I believe you've been working on some consent stuff. Would you care to share some of that?
Yes, I am. So, and for those who don't know me, I'm a, certified sex educator, certified relationship coach, kink educator. I'm the executive producer, creator, and host of Sex with Sunday Megatron on Showtime. I have a couple of podcasts. Like I do lots of stuff. And the one thing that I haven't done that I'm like, maybe this is the next thing I'm going to tackle is I'm working on a book. And this book focuses on what we typically think of as the soft skills in kink. And the working title is Customizable Kink, a Strategic Guide for Erotic Play. And, one of the themes that goes throughout my work is that in kink education, and even sex education in general, we concentrate oftentimes on the technical. How do I do this? What are the steps to tie ropes? That sort of thing. And that's important. But what we underemphasize are those soft skills, or what I like to call strategic skills, that support what we do. So I have been working on writing that book, and I am in the midst of putting the bits and pieces together on the consent chapter and really trying to capture not just the basics of consent, which are absolutely important, but we hear them all the time, the Planned Parenthood FRIES models, freely given, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, wait, go ahead and spell it out because some of the viewers might not know it.
Oh, okay. Wait, now let me get it in my head. FRIES, FRIES, freely given, revocable. Wait, FRI. Oh God, what's the I? Where? My brain. Freely given, revocable. What is it? What is it? What is it? I'm having the menopause brain right now.
Wasn't it inclusive?
FRI. Enthusiastic is E.
Yep.
RIES. God, I have to look it up because you know how it is.
Yes,
our brains are full of so much information. But the FRIES model is a very popular model that is used by Planned Parenthood, that's taught to high school students. It's taught to adults. It's pretty much the model for consent. And yes, it lays out the basics for us, but what it doesn't address are what are the things that can skew our consent, and not informed. That's informed,
the right.
It'll come in the shower. I'll start screaming out words.
Specific.
Yes, specific. So the things that mitigate our consent or that skew our consent that are present in the situation between the people having the consent conversation, and also what's present within us, what our patterns are for either setting boundaries or being afraid to set boundaries, what we've had a hard time with. Why do we have a hard time with this? Are the decisions that we're making really the decisions we want to make? And what are all of the things that influence that? And that's really the key. Sure, we can follow the steps, but if we don't know the nuance and all the things that skew consent, how good are those steps? And you had said something, Midori, about how this is complex. And there is a lot to learn. And for people who may be feeling overwhelmed, like let's say you're really starting on your journey to think about consent and to learn about these things, and not only to apply consent in your kink life or your sex life, but even your daily life, because any interaction we have with any human being involves consent, right? Don't feel like, whoa, this is overwhelming. It's so much. These are things that we all theoretically should have been learning our whole lives. But because of the society we grew up in, you know, our norms around so many things, power imbalances that exist in the real world, all of those things, we all have been taught to ignore those things. So it's okay. We're all behind. We are all playing catch up, and we are all learning. And once we do, we can apply these things to every facet of our lives.
This discussion of consent right now, that it's been really coming to the surface of social discourse. For those of us in the sex positive subcultures and underground, we've been working at this for years, and yeah, it's finally hitting mainstream, you know? I mean,
Yes.
you and I, each of us have been working on this for at least 20, 25 years. I also, something that's been striking me is I've been shifting, talking about consent making instead of giving consent, taking consent. And that the giving, taking, giving, receiving, I think still sticks to the, assumes for the transactional and gatekeeping model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it's something I need to take from you, or that I have it and I give it to you. But what if we were making it together?
Yes, it really is a co-creation. You know, oftentimes when we think about consent, we think about, like you said, what can I get? What can I get? Or sometimes what can I get away with? And we don't think about A, the other person, and B, what we're creating together. So rather than thinking about, you know, transactional, what can I get? If you're the initiator, let's say, of whatever consent situation this is, rather than how far can I push it? What can I get? What can I get out of it? How about what desires can I tap into for that other person that's involved in my situation? And based on that, how can it match up with my desires where we can co-create something really awesome together?
On the co-creation bit, you were also talking about cultural, societal, and I guess familial norms, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about co-creating, there's almost this assumption, like let's say if you and I are negotiating for some fun, right? There's this assumption that, and I think linguistically it happens where you and I come from an equal playing field of agency and autonomy. Now, Marla and I got to show you the video from previous Consent Dojo. We talked about the difference of entitlement that we bring into the room before we even start talking.
Yes.
Want to talk about that?
Yes. Okay. So I am going to unveil, I guess, something to you and to everybody watching. For sort of the first time, I've been, you know, as I've been writing my book, I've been refining my teachings and packaging it into more easy to remember sort of, you know, frameworks. And I have a working acronym. But right now it's POSSUM, spelled PASSM. But you know, we all thought maybe the consent possum could be a mascot at some point. Well, stay tuned. Eating some fries, it would be cute. Like, just imagine the merch. So anyway, basically, these are prompts to help you analyze the undercurrent of maybe what's not being seen, what's not being said in your consent situation. And so I'll tell you what those stand for. P is power and balance. A is agency. S is safety.
Oh, slow down. I'm writing it in,
yeah.
the chat. Power imbalance.
Power imbalance is the P. The A is agency.
Agency. I'm writing it in the chat. So
awesome. The S is safety, and with that comes trust. So safety and trust. The next S is support.
Okay.
And then the M is motivation. So in my Chicago accent, it's passive.
And motivation. You haven't talked about this publicly, have you? We've like sort of talked about it behind the scenes.
And I have talked about these points many times before, but I took my puzzle pieces and rearranged them. So this is the first time I'm talking in my rearranged sense. So, you know, I wanted to create some sort of prompts that helped us think about that nuance and those undercurrents that we don't normally think about. Like in the Fries model, sure, informed kind of covers it. Enthusiastic maybe kind of covers it. But this is more a step back, an introspection to see, like, am I gaslighting myself? Am I fooling myself about this situation? And secondly, where is that other person coming from? So go ahead.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Is it power imbalance or power and balance?
Power imbalance.
That's what I
thought. I guess it could be power and balance, or kind of the same thing. I don't know. It's a work in progress.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Back to you.
No worries. And so the first thing is power imbalance. There are power imbalances in many layers of our interaction. And in this example, let's say we are negotiating consent in some sort of kink situation, whether it's a scene, whether maybe we're negotiating a dynamic or a long-term relationship, that sort of thing. Oftentimes, the person who has the most power in the situation. And that can be complicated because it's not like one, you know, let's say this is a two-person interaction. One person has all the power on all of the different layers while the other doesn't. It can be complex, and, you know, the way the power intersects can be complex. But oftentimes the person who holds the most power doesn't realize the power that they have. And they don't realize the influence that power has on the other person, how that power is received, and how that may affect that other person's behavior, how it may affect their ability to feel comfortable consenting or advocating for themselves. So with the power imbalance, you know, it's a series of questions to ask yourselves. And instead of asking questions of yourself in a way that's, is there a power imbalance present? There's always going to be. Ask it more, what power imbalances are present? Because there are. You know, whether that's gender, race, class, you know, ability, somebody standing or popularity in the community, their reputation. It could be their kink role, you know, whether they're dominant, submissive, etc. And then ask yourself what things, identify these things. What things could be present that you're not seeing? Whether you're that person with the most power or the other person in the relationship. Also ask yourself, are you coming to this interaction on neutral ground? You know, oftentimes we think, oh, yeah, we're going to put our dom and sub hats away. We're going to negotiate on neutral. Are you really, truly doing it? Because oftentimes, even that power dynamic imbalance will creep into your negotiations. You know, and ask yourself, how can you be sure? You know, if you've answered all these questions and you've done your introspection and you say, oh, no, there's no power imbalance there. Oh, no, it's fine. Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah. how can you be sure? Specifically name the ways that you are sure that that power imbalance isn't there. So that's one, that power imbalance is huge. I know just as someone who was socialized a woman, for instance, and socialized a woman of color, right? Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I just turned 50 this year. Oh, so now I give no F's, and I feel comfortable saying like, no, this is what I don't care what you think. Yeah. But I had gone 49 years afraid, to speak my mind for lots of reasons that were conditioned into me societally, whether that's I have been disregarded and had my consent violated. And I'm not talking in big dramatic ways, just little kind of microaggressive ways. So much.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Touching your hair.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. That sometimes, though, it's, all of those little things add up, right? And then, of course, I've had big things too, that it has happened so much, and it's so painful every time it comes up. Sometimes if I don't even create the possibility of being rejected, I don't have to deal with it. So, let's say I'm in a consent situation and someone says, can I touch your hair? Maybe they've asked.
Wait. They actually said that?
Yeah, maybe that's not a good example because
they never asked.
Yeah, exactly. But, okay, I'll reframe the example to be more realistic. Someone reaches out to touch my hair without asking, okay? Rather than me saying, oh, no. I've had so many situations where people, just try to push past me anyway. Well, why? They try to break me down. They try to get what they want. I might get to the point where it's like, you know what? It's easier just to let them touch my hair and not to try to say no, not to try to. And that conditioning comes up in so many different ways, whether it's hair touching, whether it's having my emotional boundaries steamrolled over in a romantic relationship, whether there are boundaries in the workplace.
I want to parallel this into, since this is on Shibari Study, to bring it into like a rope thing, that rope situation, that situations that are quite common, and you've seen my rope class. What I see often out there in terms of the power imbalance that goes unexamined is this idea of, and it's really insidious, it's straight out sexism, right? The assumption that women are bottoming, assumption that it's this heteronormative power dynamic, and if a woman enjoys bottoming to rope, I'll start to hear things like, oh, just a bottom, or assuming that because one likes to receive rope, that one is also enjoys submitting to rope, different thing, or that they are also passive outside of scene. And that's really common. Yeah. And that overlays with a social conditioning where so many women-raised folks are assumed that they're either, why bother setting a boundary, or they've been conditioned to others having access to. And then this whole idea of just a bottom, I also, little personal pet peeve, I actually hate the word model when referring to somebody who's bottoming in a scene.
Because it's like they're a mannequin, right? Like they're not a person.
Yeah. So that word model, I think, also gives subconscious passivity. I mean, it's one thing if I've got my class assistant and they are modeling this body harness. but a model. No, this is a person who is modeling. This is a person who's bottoming. So I have encountered many of folks who feel that somehow a person topping with rope also has more authority in all things.
Yeah.
And that's icky.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and these things are so insidious and so pervasive and so ingrained in us that it's hard for us to see them. You know, you know, so this is why, you know, I have these prompts and the suggestion of different questions to ask yourself, and whether that's, you know, if you have the time, if it's a longer ongoing negotiation, where you can step back and ask yourself things, or do a little workbook, or, you know, like a journal prompt to really think about, like, where are we both coming from with this? And if not, let's say it's a quick negotiation. If it's, you know, you're doing a pickup scene, you know, something a little more simplistic, there's still just these points like power imbalance to just quickly review, like, okay, is the ground really as even as I think here? You know, what we're talking about brings us into the second letter, or the second letter of the acronym A, agency. You know, which factors are present that affect you or keep you from recognizing your own agency, or using your own agency and expressing it to the extent that you want to. So that could be, you know, like we talked, the past invalidate. I've been invalidated so much that I just don't advocate for myself anymore. You know, fear, social conditioning. We self-gaslight ourselves a lot, you know.
Can you, for the sake of the viewers, talk about gaslighting and self-gaslighting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the term gaslighting came from a movie, which I think was also a play. Ingrid Bergman was in the movie Gaslight. And basically, long story short, plot was her husband kept messing with the lights, like back in the day when it wasn't electric, but it was gaslight, kept making the lights flicker and that sort of thing. And, you know, hey, these lights what's wrong with these lights? They keep flickering. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not happening. You must be imagining it. So it's the process of another person bending your reality to the point where you're not exactly sure what's really what and what's the made up thing. And, you know, in the movie, he used this technique to eventually have her committed to an institution and make people think she, you know, didn't know what she was doing. And
in the movie, it was obvious. It was something that the evil husband had planned all along. Gaslighting, is this correct? That gaslighting can also happen from people who don't have nefarious intentions.
Yes, yeah. You know, we, as humans, we manipulate all the time. And we think of the word manipulation as being bad. Someone who manipulates is a horrible person. We manipulate. There's a spectrum of manipulation. Sometimes we manipulate for good. Sometimes we manipulate because that's human nature. If I'm giving a presentation at work to a new vendor, you know, a new, I don't know, business partner that I want to partner with me, well, of course, I'm going to use persuasive language. I am going to present my company or my services in the best light. That's a form of a manipulation, but that's not negative. So oftentimes that acceptable or even good manipulation, the line when it crosses into not so good manipulation is very fuzzy for a lot of us. And there are folks that manipulate to get their way. And if you really examine it, yeah, it's unethical. Maybe very small, maybe very under the radar. But is it necessarily ethical? You know, so that's where gaslighting comes in all the time.
Another aspect that I see you were talking about, the whole spectrum of this, that there's manipulation in the whole spectrum as well. Another way to think of gaslighting is, and this combining it with power imbalance.
Mhm.
If I think, because, and I've certainly experienced this as immigrant woman, young, all of that, that my opinions and my observations are less relevant.
Mhm.
And if the other person believes that they know more,
Yeah.
then this little tiny bit of gaslighting can continue to skew that. And then I start to doubt my boundaries, I doubt to start to doubt my own decisions.
Mhm.
When we
Mhm.
doubt our own decisions, how can we set, how can we not only set boundaries, but how can we also ask for what we want?
Exactly. You know, and we've all been there to one extent or another, you know, whether it's getting that imposter syndrome, like, oh, do I really? Maybe they know what they're talking about more than I did. Maybe I should just listen to what they think, even though somewhere deep down it feels a little off, but they must know better. Or, you know, if I'm advocating for something and maybe I'm getting a little pushback, and that makes me just go, you know what? Maybe I am being too picky. Maybe I'm just being too, nah, it's not important. I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I don't, right? So yes, that is are things we need to examine. And some of the ways we can examine those are, you know, ask yourself, to what degree, again, not if, but to what degree does the person you're negotiating with response affect your delivery, or anticipated response affect your delivery, your approach, the degree in which you advocate for yourself, the degree in which you doubt yourself. And if we really sit and think about that, oftentimes for a lot of us, it's more than we thought. And on the flip side with that, ask yourself, how much entitlement do I have? How much do I expect this other person to respond favorably to me, to agree with what I want? How one-sided is this? Am I the initiator of everything, the asker, the asker, the asker, the asker? You know, again, is it about what I want or what I can get away with, or is it about co-creation and matching my desires up with the other person's desires and finding that sweet spot?
Now, you mentioned a word that I love picking on: entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word entitlement the word entitlement has been much maligned.
Yeah, it depends on who you are
Mhm.
and your, I guess, you know, the power that you wield,
Mhm.
what that word means to you,
Right.
and if
And
it's a negative or a positive.
when I'm teaching Fort FM, part of the lessons with my Fort FM students is talking about your rightfully earned entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
Entitlement in itself is not bad. I am entitled to a vote in my country. Why? Because people have fought for my right to be able to vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a foreign born person, as a woman, as a person of color, I am in playing with rope, I am entitled to having a boundary. I am entitled to being able to say yes or no, I want to play. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That is entitlement that we have earned.
Yes.
And if we don't understand what we're actually entitled to, now, on the other hand, there is this overreach of entitlement, which is the negative, right? So when somebody comes up and touches me, that is, they believe they have entitlement to my body, or that they have entitlement to or whatever. And I'm also want to flip the script too, that we often around consent focus on the people who are bottoming in rope.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always a consent incident or consent manipulation going from person topping,
right,
manipulating, or consent violating the person bottoming. It can also go the other way as well. So because so a person bottoming does not have the, until specifically said, does not have the entitlement to touch the person topping.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's,
so, yeah.
you know, it again, like, here's the nuance. Everything that we talk about has caveats, exceptions, has, well, it depends on who, blah, blah, blah. And that's a prime example, you know. So with entitlement, like I said, it depends on who you are and the power that you wield. And I'm not talking about the power that you wield maybe in that moment, but the power that you wield as a human and how that power affects your behavior, your, you know, that sort of thing, your emotions. So for instance, you know, let's go with the stereotype. I am a male top, and I have been raised in a culture where I just, you know, throw my entitlement all over the place. Well, then we're going to say, you know, check your entitlement. Check that you aren't overstepping because you have this overinflated sense of entitlement. However, on the flip side, to your point, and, you know, when I first started playing with my dominant side, now I identify as a dominant, but I started out submissive because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, this doesn't feel right. But it was a journey for me, not only a kink journey, but a personal journey to embody my dominant side in the safe container of kink, because that's power that I am rarely allowed in the default world. I do not know how to embrace my rightful entitlement. I gaslight myself. I minimize myself. I don't want to cause too much trouble. I don't want to. So in my position, I need to recognize my rightful entitlement and work on embracing that. So yeah, that's a loaded word that can have two completely different meanings and two completely different contexts, depending on who it's applied to and in what situation. Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated, y'all.
Are we on word number 2?
Yeah, we're on 2. Let's get to oh, and really quick, like with agency, also think about, you know, whether, no matter who you are, if you're the more entitled person in the situation or not, if you're somebody who can pick up on nonverbal cues and more somatic physical cues, whether it's in yourself or somebody else, you may logically be operating with, oh, everything's fine, but you have this pit in your stomach. Or the person you're talking to, like, keeps looking away and not making eye contact, and something's a little off or uneasy, but you can't put your finger on what, but something's not aligning in that sense. Might clue you in that there may be some sort of issue with one or more people in that situation really stepping into their full agency.
Now, you mentioned about the nonverbal cues.
Mm-hmm.
Nonverbal cues, some people are exquisite at reading them.
I can't. I'm neurodivergent and I'm hyperverbal. I cannot read nonverbal cues. I get very confused.
You're neurodivergent. That's right.
Yeah. I have ADHD, newly diagnosed, but nonverbal learning disability, which is sort of like if you were to mash up some characteristics of autism spectrum disorder with ADHD, and then a bunch of spatial awareness issues, which is why I'm not the greatest at rope. It takes me forever to learn how to tie knots and space things out and all that kind of stuff.
Now, I think you've had fun in my rope class.
Yes. You're like one of the few people that makes rope unintimidating for me, because it is such it's not that I can't do it. It's just I have to work harder. It's a challenge mentally for me. But similar to people on the autism spectrum, I cannot interpret nonverbal cues. Either I don't see them, I misinterpret them. Also and I know someone in the chat brought up enthusiastic consent, how that's, and I know you have your engaged collaborative consent. So my enthusiasm may not look like the typical, which is why I'm not really a big fan of like enthusiastic either. So that can be difficult, and that's definitely, and I'm going to have a whole section in the book about neurodivergency and kink and negotiations, because that affects lots of things. And a lot of us are neurodivergent and we don't know it, or we're not diagnosed, or, there's a large percentage of the population that is. So I think all the time, I know all the time in every situation, we need to keep that in mind.
Okay, so the neurodivergency. I'm going to diverge on the neurodivergency.
Of course.
Okay. We've sort of been talking about it in our other private conversations. I'm looking forward to reading your chapter on that, because, as I mentioned, I'm having a autism and neurodivergent coach about neurodivergency and kink, John Pendle, over on my Patreon. And I recommended John to you as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So not everyone's going to be good at reading the physical cue. And here we are discussing consent, and now it's already complicated as it is. And we're telling people to understand the physical cues. And you talked about looking away. Somebody mentioned something in the chat about cultural norm.
Yes.
Right? So what seems like an innate experience of, let's say, if I'm not making direct eye contact with you, is it that I am feeling reticent, or is it that my Japanese is coming up?
Right. Or is it that I'm neurodivergent and I absorb auditory material better when I'm not looking at you? Right. I mean, there could be lots of reasons. So as a hyperverbal person, I am a proponent of ask, don't assume. If you sense something, if you can sense, because not everyone can, if you can sense that something non-verbally or physically feels incongruent with what they're telling you, ask. Just say, I'm picking something up and I don't know if I'm off base here. I notice you're looking away a lot, or you don't seem, maybe as enthusiastic as I would assume. But maybe and you guys are like, oh no, I actually really am enthusiastic. I don't show it. I don't have, big emotions. Or
this is exactly why, a couple of my favorite questions in negotiation is, what do you look like and sound like when it's good for you or not good for you?
Yes.
Because like when I'm topping with rope and I'm really in close with the person, my happy face, get this, looks like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some of us, if we're negotiating with a partner that we know really well and we know their personal cues, it might be easier. But even so, I've been with my partner for, what are we going on, 13 years? And there's still times where it's like, what? I thought you totally meant something. What? Okay.
Yeah, that's called a marriage.
Exactly.
And then they'll also add to this, right? The performativity of sex, aka faking it, consciously or not consciously. Because how we respond, this is something I noticed when I go to sex clubs and swingers club in Japan. as opposed to sex club and swingers club and play parties in the US. Uh, and because I'm a Japanese woman, I'm looking around to see how my peers are, right? And there is a behavior and response to sex and kink that is actually culturally specific, right? What kind of faces we make. Sometimes people fake it. If you're out there faking it, I understand, but you don't have to. You don't have to, because we all look really weird when we're in the middle throes of pleasure, of rope and or sex. We all look really weird. And I've heard often about people who are either bottoming and or women folk who are like, oh, I think I'm going to look funny and I'll be judged because I look funny, or I'm sweating, or I don't look sexy.
Right.
I think in a lot of ways, the Instagram and FetLife photo culture adds a layer of expectation and toxicity.
It does. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, and that's one of for me personally, and this is due to my neurodivergence, I learned the hard way, especially as a top. One of the things I have in my negotiation, and I will actually, in a minute, like when you're talking, I can type. I have a free negotiation workbook that everyone can access. If the short code is bit.ly negotiation WB / negotiation WB, all small letters, bit.ly
okay,
slash.
I'm writing bit.
Okay. bit.ly / negotiation WB, like for workbook. And it's all small letters.
Okay, and no dash or anything.
No dash. Yep.
Negotiation WB. Okay, I just put it in the chat.
Awesome. So this is one of the things I discovered the hard way, especially topping, and that I've then added it to my negotiation workbook because, again, whether you are, aware that you or a partner is neurodivergent or diagnosed, we all kind of, have layers of things, and it's. In my mind, you can't over negotiate, right? Like more information, well, you can, but the more information about those cues, the better. So
let me be devil's advocate, I guess.
Yeah.
Over negotiating. Negotiating isn't sexy. You know this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Give alternative.
Negotiation happens constantly. It does not have to be let me take out my checklist and compare it up with your checklist. And is it okay if I touch you here? And it doesn't have to be clinical all of the time. It can be something as simple as, ooh, I really want to, throw you up against the wall face first and take some rope and tie your wrists and then, have my way with you on the bed or whatever it is. Do you want that too? And in a sexy way, in a dirty talk. Do you want that too? Yeah. Oh, really? I want to hear you beg for it. I want to hear you tell me exactly what you want me to do to you. And you're dirty talking and negotiating.
Yeah. Erotic storytelling skills. I've adjustment that I've made on the erotic storytelling as a type of negotiation skill. It's a soft skill, something that I've changed the phrasing because, of course, every time all of my good ideas come from something that fucked up in the past, I've been asking so what do you want more? What do you want less? What do you want different? Because I remember feeling like when somebody would say, do you want that? Whether it's sex or rope or food that they're cooking or whatever, or movies we're watching. If I'm not certain about what it is I want, or I have no experience,
right? You'll say yes or no.
The imbalance,
right? Yes.
Imbalance, I might end up saying, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something actually I see a lot in, oops, stop the alarm clock. This is something that, obviously my serious face here. This is something, unfortunately, that I've seen, witnessed, and talked a lot with people, people who bottom in Japan, especially with women, that there's a pressure to say yes to any proposal, even if it's put out as a query.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Hey, in America, I mean, I can resonate with that, to just to agree. If you're presented with a yes or no question, to agree. And you know, as I said, when we started going over these introspection prompts, it's the same thing. Don't just stop at yes or no questions. And it's the same thing in interviewing. Like, you know, like if you're an interviewer for my podcast, the first rule is you never ask yes or no questions, because then you just get a yes or no and it stops there. It cuts it off. So even if you start with a yes or no question, that's just an introduction. You know, do you want me to tie you up and have my way with you? They say yes. Oh, really? So what do you want me to do?
oh, let's role
How
play.
do you like to be tied?
Sunny, let's role play that.
Okay, let's do it. Midori,
Come at me, woman.
do you want me to tie you up and throw you down on the bed and have my way with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what kinds of things would you want me to do to you on that bed?
And thought bubble.
Right.
Here's what's happening in my head, y'all. I might be going, what are the things that I'm supposed to say? All right. What's the thing that would make Sunny happy? Right. What's the things that I've seen in pictures that I'm supposed to ask for? What is it that I really want?
So then, you know, if let's say, whether there's hesitation or not, right? Definitely if there's hesitation, but I can redirect things at, you know, when you are in a consent situation, again, it's not about what can I get? What can I get away with? It's about what is their desire and how can we match that up? So I might say, what would make you feel good right now? And I might even give you a few choices, you know, like orgasm after orgasm, maybe a little role play. Do you want to feel afraid and, you know, anticipation, exciting? Maybe. Do you want to turn the tables on me?
And multiple choice with like multiple choice, like ABC or other. Multiple choice is a great way for folks to get away from the yes/no format, right?
Right.
Okay, so going back to our role play, so I've gone through these little 4 possibilities, right? And then you give me the multiple choice, and I'm like, huh. Now, I might, and I'm looking at each of those and thinking, well, actually, I think what I want is I want to feel the weight of your body and your strength on me. But, you know, it's like I see a lot of images in porn and rope bondage where there's strangulation. I don't want that. But I want to feel your strength on me.
Okay. And how do you want to feel my strength? Do you want to feel my sexy strength? Mess around kind of strength? Or do you want to feel my authority?
Yeah, authority and the bodily muscular thing. I also like heavy blankets, just to give you, you know.
Okay, so a human weighted blanket.
Yeah.
Okay. I like
With
that.
authority, right?
Okay.
I don't think I'm so much about role play, but you in your authority and dominance space, that sounds really kind of hot. Yeah.
Okay. So, we could opt, and that's a lot of direction, because we started with, I restrain you, throw you on the bed, and have my way. That could be anything. That could be, I wrap you in tinfoil and throw my pet gerbils on you. Like, it could be, that's a, but I mean, really, it's so non-specific. The S and fries, it's so non-specific. It could be anything. And we could be interpreting that two very different ways. And if I just give you, well, this is what I want to do because I'm me, and there's something that affects your agency, maybe it's power imbalance, maybe it's something else, and you just agree, then I've had the best time of my life. And, for you, it's okay. Absolutely. Yeah. I like it. So, we've gone through the first two. We got 3 more letters of the acronym. I want to get through those because we can talk. And I think the others will maybe go by quick. I don't know. We could talk about so many things for hours.
Okay, I gotta do it. You have a fan of the throw my pet gerbils on you.
I don't know. See. I tapped in somehow without subconsciously. Anyway, so cute. So the first S is safety, and with that comes trust, right? The trust of your partner, and even like the trust of yourself, and your own abilities to engage in the situation, have your own autonomy. So, oftentimes we come into consent situations from a place of logic, which is great. But sometimes we come too much from a place of logic, and we don't tap into, wait, what am I really feeling? I can take this, but it's like whole psychology. I understand why sometimes I cannot identify what I'm feeling. I cannot identify that I'm feeling anything. Maybe if I am feeling like a pit in my stomach or a little uneasiness, I'm so accustomed to minimizing it, gaslighting myself, pretending it's not really happening. And sometimes when we really listen to our intuition, it sounds kind of woo and basic, but there's something to be said about, what are you feeling? Do you feel uneasy? Do you have the pit in your stomach? Are you closed? Is there something that doesn't feel right that maybe you're not recognizing within yourself, and that maybe isn't on a plane of logic? So your brain's not going, oh, I'm safe, blah, 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 blah. Tap into that. And ask yourself, not do I feel safe? How safe do I feel? To what degree do I feel that safety? To what degree do I trust the person that I'm with?
See, the safety and trust, the overlap, something that I hear a lot about when I'm playing, specifically when I'm teaching, though, is I want to be safe, says person. So I must see what kind of skills the person likes the bottom says, that I need to make sure that the person I want to approach has really great rope skills. But is rope skills necessarily the safety that you seek? Because there are a lot of different ways to have safety.
Right.
There's the emotional safety. There's safety in being accepted for communication. I have certainly played with people who were minimal on the technical skill,
right,
but their human skill
Right, exactly. And you know, of course we have to examine both of that. And you know, part of safety is like, am I you know, have they demonstrated their level of skill to me? Am I satisfied with they know, you know, yes, I think they know what they're doing. And also, how do I know enough to make a fair assessment? How do I know that I know enough to make a fair assessment? Maybe where are some of those blind spots? What don't I know? You know, and of course that is definitely important, but that's one piece of it. Those human skills. Do I trust that they are self-aware enough to be emotionally honest with me about their situation? You know, to what degree? Why do I think that? What and you know, let's say you know, I'm 90% sure that I completely what's that 10%? What's that 10% telling you? What red flags are there? What yellow flags are there? What green flags are there? Because there's going to be some.
So
You
we have a
know,
question from the room, and this is a good one. I also have some thoughts on this. This individual asked, how do you check somebody's skills also? A lot of bottoms are not trained in knowing what to look for, also for human skills indeed. I'm going to say that a lot of people, whether they're topping or bottoming, don't have not been taught how to, what are the skills, right?
mm-hmm.
And okay, around rope. I think the mistake that people make is, how advanced and complicated is your skill level, as opposed to, are you able to, if I'm the one tying, am I able to assess the limitations of my skills and play within that?
Yes.
So let's say that if the only thing that I can tie is our 2-column ties, right? If I were to say, play with you with just 2-column ties, how many positions can we make? Lots.
Right.
But so in this case, it's not about how many of the Shibari studies exercises technical stuff have you mastered, but are you able to assess? Okay, so here's like a driving example, right? I am not a race car driver. Does that make me an unskilled driver?
No, but you know what you can do and what you can't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it's snowing up in the Sierras and driving the little car, it's an SUV, it can handle the snow, but it's within my limitations. So I will ask my wife, who knows how to drive in snow.
Right.
So does that make me an unskilled driver? It makes me skilled at assessing my limitations.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And that's, you know, some of that is, you know, to the question, some of it might be, I firmly believe that in kink education, no matter what our, like, let's say we're always submissive or we're always bottoms or we're always tops or whatever, we need to learn it. You know, we need to know, even if you're not going to be an expert, but you need to know the things to look. And you also need to know, if you don't know what those technical skills are, evaluate them. Think back to, you know, your classic job interview. When they ask you, you know, they're like, what are you good at? What have you accomplished? What awards have you won? And then they get to, so what are your weaknesses? What do you wish you were better at? Tell me about a time where maybe you did a project and looking back, you know, you could have done it better, or how did you handle that? That sort of thing. If this is somebody, and that's a great way to figure out, like, are you a race car driver or do you know how to drive on city streets? If someone is like, oh, I can do it all. Oh, yeah. I've never made a mistake. I do everything. I'm an expert. That's one of those little red flags. Like, right? But if they're able to say, like, this I am really good at this and this and that, but that, okay, that's, you can decode that from their character and their responses, as opposed to knowing all of the technical skills just like an expert would, so you can evaluate every little tiny thing.
Yeah, because I've certainly in rope culture, met people who have really superb tying skills, but no skill in communication, or hidden agendas, or no skill in playing hot and with boundaries.
Yes. Yeah. It's, we have to look at all the dimensions, even in the safety. One of the things for me is, do I feel that this person is, I'm going to say on the same level, but has the same philosophy, or maybe the same ability or point of view when it comes to their own self-awareness, their ability to communicate, and their communication style, their emotional literacy. And how do I know these things? What clues or what characteristics about this person tell me, like, yes, I think we're on, we're a good match. So in those areas.
Let me ask you a practical question then, proxy to the viewers. Okay, Sunny, that's fine, but can you give me a couple of phrases or something concrete I can ask?
Yes.
Because assessing skill seems like such a vast thing if we're talking about human skill and tying skill. Sunny, give me a script.
So, okay, one of the things we already talked about is, like, tell me what you're not good at, what you can't do. So if they are aware enough ability wise to know what their downfalls are, but it can be the same sort of thing, or same sort of questions, but on a more a human skill or soft skill level. So tell me about a time that you had a scene go wrong, and you thought you negotiated and you weren't on the same level. How did you handle that? What did that follow-up look like? What kind of resolution did you come to with that other person? Seeing how they handled those. Think about, if you want somebody who has a communication style that is on par with what you're expecting, or a emotional literacy level, or a self-awareness level, ask them about times that they had to employ those actions. If you are relatively new to that person, if it's somebody that you've been with it, you might think back about, oh yeah, when let's say we had a consent misunderstanding, maybe we didn't negotiate thoroughly and it was a legitimate misunderstanding. They handled it kind of crappy. They kind of made it my fault and didn't listen to what I had to say, or tried to turn it around and blame me, even though maybe no one's really to blame. It was a misunderstanding. We just had to talk it out and, do a little recon to figure out where we went wrong, so that won't happen the next time. And when that happened, let's say it was a little thing, they didn't really handle it very well. That right there, that's a huge clue. That's a huge red flag. That's a huge, maybe they're not going to emotionally or human, soft skill wise, do what I need them to do. Yeah. So when it comes to support, this is, kind of encompassing all the things we've talked about, all of the things that can skew our consent and mitigate our consent, and recognizing that us humans, we are not perfect. We are not good at emotions and communicating and all those human things, right? And oftentimes all of us are at some point in our personal journeys of overcoming some of, like, yeah, I do just, like, agree to things I don't agree to. And I'm trying to work on that. Or I'm afraid to advocate for myself because I've had all these past instances, whatever it is. We're all going through something on that journey, right? Or maybe I just steamroll over everything and just want to get what I want. And I don't listen very well to the feedback others are giving me to try to co-create an experience for everybody. Whatever it is, we're all working on something. So to be able to support the other person in their autonomy, in their consent. So whether that is asking those, well, what do you want? I'm not just going to settle for a yes or no, but I'm going to guide you in really thinking about what you want and being able to express to me. Or if I know that you advocate for yourself, I'm going to give extra space for that. I am going to approach it multiple ways, at different times. I am going to thank you for advocating for. If you say no, I'm going to validate that no. I'm not going to take it personally because, consent is people look at when somebody says no as like it's anti you, right? When I say no, it's pro me. I am advocating for myself. And that is a good thing. It is a positive thing. So to recognize that, thank you. Thank you for telling me how you feel about that. Thank you for advocating for yourself. I'm glad you told me. Now let's try to co-create something together that satisfies all of us. Or if it's, to say, I know that was really hard for you to do. I'm proud of you that you are able to advocate for yourself like that.
Got a question for you around advocacy. How would a person recognize that the other person is okay? So, for example, if we're negotiating, how would I know that you easily advocate for yourself or you don't?
I like to include those questions in my negotiations. Mm-hmm. So, do I have a hard time saying no? Have I ever had a hard time using my safe word? Why? And to talk about that. So I can gauge with the person I'm playing with, let's just assume they're a relatively new partner. If it's somebody that I've been with many years and, we go to couples therapy together and I know these things intuitively from, our history together. But ask those questions. Like, do you have a hard time advocating? Do you have a hard time saying no? Practice saying no. Let's say it's a ongoing partner, right? Practice, asking them silly questions that that they're going to say no to, or it's an exercise, so that you're doing this.
Hey, honey, can I tie your head up with an octopus?
No. Nope. Okay. and oftentimes though, am I one of those people who maybe I don't feel confident in my right to entitlement to just say no without having to explain myself and be like, well, no, because I just got my hair cut and I really like octopuses though, and it's like it's not you, it's my hair, and maybe just no. You don't have to know why. And that's really important, as the support. And when I'm in these situations, it's not like one person is always the support and the other person is always the person who has a hard time. It is both of us. We need to support our partners in this way.
Yeah, actually, you mentioning the feeling a need to explain your no. If that is a really good way to tell if you feel like you don't have entitlement and agency in the situation. Do you feel compelled to have to explain it? One, okay, then, or do you feel compelled to demand a why? And then I'm somebody who tends, if I'm like, well, Sunny, you said no to this amazing octopus bondage scene. And tell me why.
Mhm.
Okay, tell me why. Fine, it's okay that you set a boundary, but I need to know why. That would be that would indicate that I'm likely to have I'm likely the person who steamrolls.
Right.
Or and whereas if I'm like, oh, I need to explain why I said no, that's a challenge then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely, oftentimes it is like looking for a loophole to steamroll and to push and to push and to push. Because we're taught to do that. We're taught to, even as little kids, mommy, can I have a cookie? Well, no. Well, how about if I clean my room? Then can I have a cookie? Well, no. Well, how about if I wait 15 minutes and then can I have a cookie? Like we're taught to keep pestering and pestering and pestering, and there's a delicate balance between, maybe you want to ask questions because you have some sort of emotional ongoing relationship with this person and you want to know more about what, if there's something behind, just to know them, or to see if is like legitimately not coming from a I want kind of, I'm a bad actor place, but to just see, is there room for negotiation on that? And you know what? Instead of asking a bunch of little questions, ask, is there room for negotiation on that? Or is that a hard no? Oh, it's a hard no. Okay, cool. I'm not asking you to defend. I'm just double check. I'm re-verifying in a very neutral way. So I'm clear this is a hard no, correct? Okay, cool.
So the octopus on your head bondage, is there any room to play with that, or is that completely a hard no on the octopus?
You know what, actually, it is a hard no on the head. But I might be willing to renegotiate something with an octopus, but not near my head.
Oh, okay. Huh. What if it were a stuffed octopus plushie?
Oh, no, I'm allergic.
Okay.
And I just gave a reason. Oh God, I failed my own test. And the last letter I want to get to, we got like a few minutes. The last letter I want to get to that I think is a key one is motivation. So, okay, whether it's yourself or your partner, and this is especially the case if I'm the initiator and I am the one doing the asking, and my respondent has agreed. Well, why? What's their motivation for doing that? That gives you a lot of insight. That gives you insight in is it really desire driven by the person who is agreeing to do this or who is responding? Or is it because they want to please you? And in kink, that gets a little complicated because sometimes we want to please people from a very legitimate space, right? So then to ask those questions, okay, if we're doing it not because I love this thing so much, we're doing it because I know it'll make my dominant happy, or maybe I'm a service top. It'll make my bottom happy if I do this for them, right? It could be either part of the dynamic, either side of the slash.
Oh, so y'all viewers, service topping is when a person who's doing the topping is centering the experience on the desire of the person bottoming. So just because you're casting rope, putting rope on, does not mean that you are also in charge or necessarily centering it upon your want. So service topping is a beautiful thing as well.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And, so legitimate that maybe we're not super enthusiastic about the thing we're doing, but we want to do it to please our partner. And then to dig into that, is that coming from a genuine place? Like, I really care about them and I want to help facilitate an experience. It's as simple as that. Or is it coming from, well, I want to please them because I don't want them to be mad at me? or I want to, or is there something else there? So to really dig in and to examine that, and to also ask yourself, if you say, no, this is coming from a genuine place. I'm doing this because I want to do it. Again, we gaslight ourselves. We fool ourselves. We are the best gaslighters of ourselves. Okay. So why? How do you want to feel when it's happening? Maybe how do you want to be left feeling afterwards? Are you nervous or apprehensive? What place is that apprehension coming from? That place in kink where maybe like we play with fear and apprehension and new things and and it's kind of scary and maybe it doesn't really look outwardly enthusiastic. And we're still nervous, but we still genuinely want to do the thing from a genuine place.
It's what
I'm apprehensive because I don't feel good about doing this every which way.
It's what I would be calling type 2 fun.
Yeah.
Type 1 fun is I'm having fun in the moment and I remember it as fun afterwards. Type 2 fun is in the moment. Maybe it's not exactly fun, but afterwards I feel very accomplished. And type 3 fun is it wasn't fun during and it wasn't fun after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, like, some of the questions of not only how do I want to feel during, but then how do I want to be left feeling afterwards? And though the answers to those questions can give you so much insight as to what your true motivations are, because sometimes we are not in touch with what we really want. We are not in touch with what we really feel. So, these prompts are not only for you to, do some introspection and to cultivate some self-awareness around whatever situation that is, but to also take these questions and flip them and think about, what would my partner respond to this? Or use them as discussions with your partner. Go ahead.
So I was thinking actually the motivation thing and combining it with skill assessment, right? And understanding the motivation can directly affect how you choose to play with the rope and what kind of ties you might use. Because if the motivation is, let's say the motivation is, I want to be a little scared and I want to be physically challenged, right? As opposed to my motivation is, I want to feel safe in my vulnerability and I want to feel held. And afterwards, I just want to feel relaxed. Whereas like the first one, my motivation might be afterwards, I want to feel like invigorated and girl. Yeah. So how would this affect the kind of rope skills that you would choose? Well, based on the motivation, maybe the first one will be a little more sadistic, whereas the second one might be slower and encasing. So the motivation of what Sunny's speaking about, dear viewers, will also affect what kind of ways you tie. And then I have to assess, okay, what am I able to do? And just because all the photos have suspensions in it doesn't mean I have to, because I'm in an apartment and I can't put things in, right? What are the skills that I have? And within that limitation, how can we make our feels during and after happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And everything we've talked about, how messy and nuanced all of these strategic human skills are, is one of the reasons why, sure, in my negotiation workbook that y'all can get, I have some suggestions for, like, here's a negotiation, technique or framework you can use. Here are some questions you can use, but they're more, I look at everything as prompts, and all with a different entryway into approaching your negotiation. So like on my sheet, I have emotional and tone prompts. Maybe you want to start your negotiating your scene with, this is how I want to feel, and it could be, and a bunch of different emotions and feelings and tones and all sorts of things. But to start with that, I want to feel XYZ. Okay, I can match that up with my partner. Now we're going to create a scene around that. When it comes to consent, when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to any of this stuff, there isn't well, first we're going to do step one. And once we've done that, we can do step, part two, and okay, ready to go. This is all stuff you're making up yourself. So these prompts can help give you ideas, can help teach you the right types of questions to ask, or in the right type of delivery, not just the yes or no, but dive in. And those are really the skills that we all need to work on developing. And it's a process.
So this is a process. And would you recommend people practicing outside of play? Because this is a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, this can apply. This can apply to any interaction, whether it's, I think there's, a classic example of negotiating with friends as to what to put on the pizza you're going to order, to perhaps, like, I'm a parent. So, negotiating different scenarios or, allowances or privileges with a teenager, that's a whole, like, just all of this. There's these skills can be overlaid on anything. You learn this for kink, you've learned this for everything in your life. Which is kind of awesome.
Hey, viewers, so something that you might want to think about, if you have friends with whom you can practice the bit.ly/negotiation WB. Negotiation or negotiations?
Negotiation without an
Negotiation WB. You can actually practice this with somebody that you're not going to play with. And let that other person know that you're practicing this, because having this rehearsal will make it a little more comfortable, and you can share these cool questions with that friend you're practicing. Yeah. Now, I hate to mention this, but as a therapist would say, our time is wrapping up. Oh. This is so good, though. I'm hoping I might be able to tempt you back onto Consent Dojo, especially when your book is out.
Yes, absolutely.
And tell us again about where people can find, especially oh my God, the American Sex Podcast is so brilliant.
Yes.
Tell us where we can find your stuff.
So American Sex Podcast on any streaming service, Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. Look it up. Also, I have a new podcast called Open Deeply that I co-host with therapist Kate Lurie. Same thing, just plug in Open Deeply, you'll find it.
Can you say that again slowly?
Open Deeply. Open Deeply podcast. You can find me on all the social medias. I'm just @ Sunny Megatron, just my name, sunnymegatron.com. And the book does not have a date yet. It is Customizable Kink, a strategic guide to erotic play, because all kink is customizable. And it's hopefully coming out in 2022, but we'll see how that goes. So fingers crossed.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you who are viewing, if you and able to put in your comments, I hope that you'll put your thanks for Sunny in there. Please go find Sunny with her amazing work. And I always love talking to you. So
yes, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you, Shibari Study. This is amazing. And this is how I fill my cup, by geeking out, talking about all this stuff. So, and thank you for everybody for being here.
On that note, goodbye to all.